when we talked about education and who benefits from education, and you remember I said it's not the students who that's the primary beneficiary of education. It's the society. It's the society that's the primary beneficiary of education, right? Now, so to prove that to you, look at how everything is set up, right? In Kenya, there's national exams, and in the UK, there's IGs, and all over the place. Most countries, education is a central government responsibility. In America, education is not a central government responsibility. It is a state right. So we have 50 states in America, and each state gets to decide basically how they educate the people in their state. Why? Because America's state rights trump, not President Trump, but Trump federal rights. That's an important part of being an American citizen, or being an American, is that we look at things from a layered way, right? So Texas education system, it may look a little bit different than Virginia's, may look a little bit different than California's, may look a little bit different than Minnesota's or Maryland's or New York's, right? Or Florida's, right? Why? Because education is a state right, okay? In America, the federal government actually doesn't have a lot of power. For example, a police officer can arrest an FBI agent. Can you imagine? A regular little police officer, he can arrest an FBI agent or a CIA agent, right? Why? Because the central power is in the state and local government. Okay, so a local police officer actually has more power in his jurisdiction now. Now, he can't go to another state or another city and exercise. He doesn't have any power. So if I'm a New York City police officer, I don't have any power in Los Angeles. Okay. But in New York, I have a lot of power, right? So that's kind of how America runs. Like, for instance, in America, you can't go to the embassy in America and get married. They'll tell you, this is not what we do at the embassy. Why? Because marriage is a state responsibility. So the states create laws, right, about marriage, each state. So each state has different laws regarding marriage. Federal government has nothing to do with it. So you can go to the embassy and say, we want to get married, and they're going to say, okay, we can't do anything about it, right? But if you go to the state, Maryland, Florida, whatever state, then they will actually issue you a marriage license. And then the state typically decides, normally what the state does, because within the state there are cities, right? Cities and towns and villages. And then normally what the state does is the state will give that responsibility to the local municipality. So in America, we have local laws, we have state laws, and we have federal laws. With the state laws being the most powerful. Now, and then federal, well, when I say the most powerful, meaning states have the most rights. However, federal law does supersede state laws. So a state cannot make a law that trumps a federal law. However, the federal government cannot supersede their power either. So they can't make any laws about marriage or any laws about education. All right. So you kind of understand that. So when you look at standards, right? We have a federal Department of Education. Their job is not to set rules or anything because that's a state right, but they make suggestions, right? They make suggestions. And Common Core is a suggestion, right? So some states don't have to follow Common Core, right? And some states have started following Common Core and then decided, yeah, we don't like it, and went back to whatever they were doing before or updated it. Okay. And some states say, we like Common Core, we're going to keep it. That's a state decision. Okay. Common Core are standards. Okay. And then um, the local schools are supposed to follow the state standards. Now, what the local schools do is they create their own curriculum based on the standards. So schools can look totally different, even though they're following the same standards. The curriculums may be completely different. So the students are learning the same what, but they're learning it in different ways and from different perspectives. So, for example, there's a part of America called the Bible Belt. And believe it or not, they're more strict than Saudi when it comes to religion in the Bible Belt. Can you believe that? No alcohol, no alcohol, women, we call them dry towns. No alcohol, women wear long dresses, very strict, very, very, very strict, right? Um, and so when a town like that, they have schools, right? The areas, regions like that, they teach they teach when it comes to like how evolution and how the world started. They teach it from a more religious perspective, right? It was called creationism. So they teach creationism. They teach that God, you know, Adam and Eve and the whole thing, right? On the first day, God made this. On the third day, on the seventh day, he rested, right? And that's what the students are going to learn. They're going to learn about the beginning of time from a religious point of view. Okay. However, in other areas, they're going to teach evolution that are not very religious, or more secular. They're going to teach more from evolution. There was a big bang, right? We came from tadpoles, and evolution over time, right? And it's completely fine. Now, and I'm not saying that in the Bible Belt they don't teach, they don't talk about evolution. They do, but it's a more heavier emphasis on religion. Okay, that's an example of curriculum. They're covering the same. They're covering the same what, but differently. Okay, but differently. Um, that's probably not the best example, but to remember it, curriculum. I mean, standards is the what. Right? What do I have to teach? And how much of it do I need to teach? Curriculum is the how. Okay. So always what makes schools different is the curriculum. And most now Saudi is different. In the Middle East, well, the Middle East is different, right? Because the Middle East has a lot of expats, right? And for the most part, in most cases, not all cases, in most cases, only nationals can go to the public schools here. Sometimes they let expats in, expats in. Sometimes they do, but for most part, the national program is for Saudis, right? So that as a result, we have private schools, we have international schools, and we have what they call community schools, right? And so Saudi is different because you have all these different nationalities, right? So Indians send their kids to Indian school, Pakistanis send their kids to Pakistani school, French people send their kids to French school, Americans send their kids to the American school, the British school sends their kids to American school and British school, because American curriculums and British are pretty much the same. Yeah, so everybody is sending, right? So if you're an educator, or you're learning about teaching and learning here, it's difficult because there's so much stuff going on here, right? You can go work for one school that has an American curriculum, and then they have a British curriculum, then they have a Australian curriculum, and then they have a French curriculum. Like you're like, what? You never learn because everyone has these different standards in curriculum. Whereas if you are in Kenya, right, and you go from school to school, it's the same standards, but you learn different curriculum because maybe each school has a different approach, right? Now, again, curriculum is everything that you do, and I mentioned this yesterday. Everything that you do from the school calendar to what time the kids go to sleep to everything, when the school day, the textbooks you teach, how you teach it, how many blackboards you have, the design of the school is curriculum. Everything is curriculum outside the what, right? And keep in mind, most of the time, educators have nothing to do with the what. Okay? Politicians, business people, sometimes the community, right? Depending on where you are, religious people, religious leaders, right? They have more to do with the what a lot of times in every country than educators themselves. Okay, so no, that's why it's important to be a trained educator, so you know the system in which you're working and how education works, so you won't be misguided. If I know that I have nothing to do with the standards, and my role is the how, and my role, even though the what is concerned with, about society, I'm concerned about learners. You see, the what is concerned about society, but I'm concerned about learners because I control the how. Right, right. It's kind of like if you go shopping, and yeah, let's say you go shopping, and I go shopping, and my wife says, "I want you to bring these 5 things." Right now, when I get to the store, I could bring any type of those 5 things, any brand, right? Because I'm the one that's doing the shopping. My wife dictated me the what, but when I get to the store, I dictate the how. How I get that. How I get it sliced, how I get the fish cut up. I kind of, unless she dictates that to me too. All right. So we're the practitioners. Okay. So, and I know it's a simple concept, and I've mentioned that several times, but it's an important concept to understand the environment in which you're teaching in. All right, let's continue. Standards are learning goals. Yeah, yeah. Standards are learning goals. I can go with that. They define the knowledge, skills. I would say more than learning goals, they're learning mandates, right? They're mandates. The government, business people are saying these first graders must learn these things, right? And let's again, I mentioned this on day one, but this stuff is important because a lot of decisions about the future are made based on the data we give the people who decide the what. So I told you before, in America, fourth grade reading scores actually predict how many prisons need to be built. Amazing. They take that data and they can decide how many prisons need to be built. It's crazy. A lot of predictions are made just simply on fourth grade reading scores alone. All right. If you notice the pearls, the PISA test, what grades are they normally targeting? Fourth grade. Because if a student hasn't learned something by, or a certain amount of stuff by the fourth grade, people know that they can make a lot of predictions about where the city is, where the state is, where the country is, where the continent is, where the region is, right? There's a lot of predictions. So when you see things that go on in the world, that's why we said the first day, A good educator. Educator is someone who knows what's going on, who's aware of what's going on, because you can make those connections to help you create and define and develop your curriculum. Okay. Curriculum is the plan and materials used to teach students, includes textbooks. Yes. Textbook, a lot of things they hear here in Saudi is that textbooks are the curriculum. No, that's just a resource within the curriculum. Okay. Distinction matters because it changes what you control. Yes. How you plan, absolutely. How you judge and if it's working, yes, absolutely. And keeps you focused on the right goals. Absolutely. Standards are the learning goals students are expected to achieve. Yes. While curriculum is the way we teach those goals. Yes. Using lessons, activities, and materials. Absolutely. You guys got it. The distinction matters because it helps me understand that students can reach the same goals in different ways. Absolutely. So I can adjust my teaching depending on the learners in my class. Absolutely. Curriculum is what we teach. No. Curriculum is how we teach it. It's not what we teach. Don't confuse content with standards. I think a lot of people confuse content. The content is the activities that you create and the stuff that's in the textbook. Okay, that's content. That's not correct. That's not standards. Okay, content falls under curriculum. So that's why I say separate standards from curriculum. Content falls under curriculum. That's a part of the how. Right. So if we're reading Romeo and Juliet, that's not standards. That's a part of the curriculum that helps meet a standard, right? The standard might be analyzing, evaluating, whatever the case may be, whatever the learning goal is. Standards are the learning goals students must achieve. That's true. The distinction matter because standards guide outcomes. No, standards do not guide outcomes. Okay. What guide outcomes? What guides outcomes? See, I can't hear you, Joy. See, that's why I like the camera on, because I can see your mouth moving. What do you say, Joy?
How we teach of the strategies that we use in class.
So curriculum guides outcomes. Standards are just there. Standards are just there. They're gonna, unless they change, this is there. They just idle, right? Curriculum is active. So it's the curriculum that guides the outcomes. Okay. Prablu says no best method. Does that free you or unsettle you? And why? Yes, I agree that there isn't a best method. Why? Every mind has different approach to learning. Methods may vary people to people or students. Unsettles me. Methods feel like insecurity. They give you a script. They give you a script when you're tired, unsure, or being observed. When he says no best method, the responsibility lies squarely on you. Absolutely. You can't blame the program if the kids that absolutely, absolutely. You can't blame the program. Right? You have to keep watching, adjusting, and taking the risk that your choice may be wrong today. That is I don't know who wrote that, but that's a very observant statement, because your academic director, supervisor, coordinator, principal, they could tell you to do this, this, and this, and all this stuff. But at the end of the day, if the students didn't achieve, you're going to be the one to get blamed for it. You can't go and say, but you told me to do these things and it didn't work. And they're going to say, no, you're a bad teacher. Right? The parents are not going to blame the principal. The parents are not going to blame the academic director. They're going to go, you're the one that was in the classroom with my student. It's your responsibility. So that's a very, very observant question. That goes back to what? Camera de Velu and the possibilities. You have to be brave. You have to be brave to say, this is not working, or I'm going to do my own thing. Okay. This is why I kind of gave pause to Dr. Ashwack yesterday. Unfortunately, she can't make it today. I gave pause to her when she said that they kind of reprimanded that one lecturer or professor, because I'm like, well, hold on a second. Maybe she saw something, right? And she wanted to provide something that was going to help the students. But because the students play games, they know that if the teacher kind of goes off track a little bit and they're not following the syllabus directly as what's written, that they can kind of play with the teacher, and that's a bad thing. But that's an administrator issue. Let me say this too. Keeping all the things I've said over the last 2 days, and I will say today, always remember the golden rule. Does everyone know what the golden rule is? Does anybody know what the golden rule is? You know, Maham? Carl, do you know? Joy, you know what the golden rule is? He who has the gold makes the rules. Always remember that. He who has the gold makes the rules. So at the end of the day, I'd say all these things, but at the end of the day, the principal is in charge. Whatever the principal say, you got to do it. But you also got to know, you also have to have the possibility where you kind of give them a little resistance. Hey, I don't think this is going to work. But don't do it to the point where you're going to lose your job. Right? You advise. Listen, based on what I've seen, based on my research, based on what's going on in the class, based on my learner profile, based on my data that I have collected, I don't predict this being a positive outcome or the best approach. And they said, well, I'm the principal, I'm the academic coordinator, you gotta listen to me. Okay. I'm just going to document that. Coordinator Sarah told me that, okay. Right. And then you also got to learn, because at the end of the day, your responsibility is to those young people, those learners. So you got to find a way to adjust and move and wiggle to try to give them the best experience. Okay. That's the reality. Okay. Know that in education, there's a lot of pride in education. And the most prideful people are the people who don't know. Always know that. You see those letters behind my name? That PhD, right? That don't mean anything. You know what I learned with that PhD? You know what I learned after getting my PhD? I learned that I don't know anything. That's what I learned. I learned that I don't know anything. That the things I thought I knew 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 8 years ago, I know I didn't know. That's not true. Or it's not always true. It's not always the case that there's always nuance. So, that those letters, when you see somebody has PhD or EDD, it doesn't mean they have all the knowledge. All that really means is that they know now that they don't know. Right? And because I don't know, I do research. Because I don't know, I do research, I do studies. Because I want to explore. Because when you do a study, any type of research, whether it's educational research or medical research, you don't do research and say it applies to everyone. No, research only looks at little small population, and I can only say this is the case for this little small population right here. not everyone else. And see, we have literature because everybody does research on that thing, but in their little populations, and we all collect it together, and somebody would do what we call a meta-analysis. That's when somebody will take all that research because everybody's looking at their little small little areas, and then somebody will do a meta-analysis and collect all of it and try to come up with some results. But even with the meta-analysis, that's for what? That time. Because by the time you do the medical analysis, 10 years has passed, 15 years a day. And we know what? Time changes everything. So only thing we can say is back then that was the case, right? But today it's different. Or it may be different. All right. So what you have to know as being an educator is that you don't know a lot. Right? And all you're going to do is try to put as many things in your toolbox as possible. And if it don't work with this tool, I'm gonna try this tool. And if it don't work with this tool, I'm gonna try this tool. Okay. Somebody says, for me, it mostly frees me because every child learns differently. In my class, some students understand better through games, songs, movement, or repetition. So I feel it is important to be flexible instead of following one method all the time. Absolutely. And remember Vygotsky's zone of proximal development, right? What does Vygotsky say? You can't use the same scaffold every single time because then it becomes a crutch, right? So that would be my evidence to Dr. Ashrat on why she should not, or why not she, but the university should not implement AI or allow the students who don't know how to write to use AI because it becomes a crutch to them. Later on, once they know, the same thing I said the Joya thing about the PowerPoint. Speaking of that, I want to show you guys something. Instead of so, I forgot to bring it. Hold on a second. I mentioned this yesterday. These Cuisenaire rods. I mentioned these yesterday. Now, believe it or not, you can use these rods to teach English. Isn't that crazy? I No, I'm not going to show you today because we don't have the time. But I'll put it in the chat. YouTube this, okay? And you don't have to buy these. You can actually make them yourself with straws. I think I paid a lot of money for these, and I realized I could have done this. I could have had my daughter paint little straws or something and did the same thing. But they're little rods. They look like Legos, and they're different colors and different sizes. And you can use them to help students with language because they can represent, like this can represent a noun and this can represent, and it can help students who right need to work with their hands, needs to they like to process, we call these manipulatives, right? Some people need to touch it, and they don't. The reason why they don't get languages because they can't feel it because somebody is showing them a slide or talking to them, and they don't have the ability to touch it. Now I can touch a noun, I can touch a verb and say, "Oh, this is how I construct a sentence." Right? Go in if you ever have time, YouTube, and there are people that will show you on YouTube how to use these rods in your classroom. So I would say, I think it was Joy, reduce the PowerPoint slides, especially in elementary school, and more stuff like this. And again, this is not the only thing that you do, right? Don't just rely on these, but this is a tool in your toolbox, right? All right. For me, it mostly frees me. Because every child learns differently. Da, 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 we said that. It feels freeing because I can adapt teaching to my students instead of forcing one method. Yes, but it can also feel unsettling because it feels freeing because I can adapt teaching to my students instead of forcing one method. Oh, okay. I think it's just a duplication. but I can feel unsettling because it removes a fixed, perfect approach to rely on. Yes, there's no best method, probably. Okay, just remember that. Remember the post method condition. Listen, there's no education experts, guys. No one's an expert in education. I was mentored by the best educators. I was blessed. God said, Ray, because I wanted to go and be a police officer, and I had got out of the military, and I thought I was going to go chase bad guys. I wanted to be a U.S. Marshal. I was going to chase bad guys all around the world, right? Because I was in the military, and I went to a military school, and I just wanted to get bad guys, right? And I was waiting for my application to go through to be a police officer, or U.S. Marshal, or FBI agent. I was just waiting. It takes some time. So I was an English major, so I went to teach at the local school, my hometown school system. And I said, I'm only going to do this for a couple months until they call me, and then I'm gone. And I had these amazing mentors. I had my boss was Rose Davis, my principal, uh, uh, Alice Taylor was my English department chair. She said, Ray, you're going to be a principal one day. You're going to get your master's degree, because at this time I only had a bachelor's degree. You're going to enroll. I expect you to enroll in these are the 3 universities you can go enroll and go to school at night. I was like, I don't want to go back to school, right? Forced me to do it. They assigned me a teacher mentor. His name was Dr. Snodley. He was a former retired principal of the school district next to Baltimore City. So I had these amazing people, and then I came here, and then I was fortunate enough to be mentored by Dave Hopkins, who wrote that textbook that's in the Google Classroom, and he taught me a lot. And it got to, and that was 20 something years, and then I got my PhD, right? 20 something years, and I'm starting to know just a little bit about education, just a little bit. I've taught every grade except elementary school. I have never taught elementary school, but I deal with elementary kids all the time. I've been a principal of schools, I've led schools, I've helped start schools, and I only know a little bit about education. So anybody who tells you that I'm an educated education expert, and I worked at this school, and I worked for this program, I worked for this company, that don't mean anything, right? Because kids change, policies change. What we know about education is different now than we knew 10 years ago. We all are in flux. That's why I mentioned Diane Lawson Freeman's complexity theory, right? Adaptability, iteration, and self-referential, all right? Because the world is chaotic, all right? And you have students who are part of that chaotic world. You are a part of that chaotic world. And no one is the master of chaos, all right? Even the CIA, they're not even them. They're not even the masters of chaos. All right, Lawson Freeman. Oh, speaking of that, Lawson Freeman's chaos theory suggests learners don't progress in straight lines. How does this change how you respond to a student who seems to be regressing? Someone said, it is a normal part of development. We'll look for patterns over time, not judge them by single performance. Absolutely. We're going to talk about assessments today. I'll treat it as feedback from the system, not failure. Instead of reteaching the same or the student forgot, I'll look at what has changed. What is fatigue, motivation, context, or new learning and new language interference. I'll adjust the condition, simplify the task, change the interaction, or give space for the skill to stabilize again. Trust in the learning can reorganize or reemerge. That's an amazing response. Amazing response. It reminds me more to be patient with students because learning is not always straight. If a student seems to be regressing, I would support and encourage them instead of thinking they failed. Because sometimes children forget today and understand better later with more practice and confidence. Let me say this too. You only have those young people in your classroom for a certain period of time. Some of you only have them for 50 minutes of time. Some of you have them for a little bit longer, right? But you only have them for X amount of hours a day. Learning takes place 24 hours a day. A lot of what you did is is wiped out, is deleted, is reduced because people believe that only learning only takes place in school, right? So the parents are not, having them go to, really helping them with their homework, or they pay for a tutor, and the tutor is doing the homework for them, or the tutor becomes what? Yes, an MKO, but a crutch, right? Because now, well, wait, I'll just wait for the tutor to get home. I'll just wait till the tutor to get here. I know the tutor is going to help me out with it. So the tutor becomes a crutch. And the parent says, well, I gave him a tutor and I put him in the school. What else more do you want me to do? Well, you got to talk to him, parent. You got to ask them. You got to, you know, the one the one benefit in my life I've had is that I had a dad who was my mom worked and my dad stayed at home. I had a stay at home dad as a father, and he would talk to me about everything. Right. So all these years later, I'm now talkative because my dad talked to me. He talked to me about everything that's going on in the world. Right. And parents understand that the primary educators are the parents, right? So you can only do what you can do. You can't, everybody's going to say it's your responsibility, but you got to have enough self advocacy to know that it's not just you, it's the whole village, right? It takes a village, African proverb, right? It takes a village. And, but the reality is everybody want to push off that responsibility to the school. Everyone to push off that responsibility to teachers. Know that that's not a reality. Okay, so challenge people. Try to get your school to work as a team. If the school has a school psychologist, a school counselor, and you see a student that needs help, make a referral to the school psychologist, the school counselor. Don't put that burden all on you. Suggest that the school start a what we call a SIT team, a school improvement team, all right, to help you out, a place where teachers can go and think together. There's a researcher by the name of, I'm getting old. I just had, hey, John Hattie. He's an Australian researcher. And he's for years, I think maybe he has stopped now, but he did it for a long time. It's called the visible learning. You can look it up, visible learning. And what John Hattie did, remember I talked about that meta-analysis? What he did was a meta-analysis. And he took all, based on other people's research, he took up all the things that we do in schools, give homework, differentiated instruction, group work, um, summer break, watching TV, video games, lesson planning, all the things that we do. He took and he rank ordered them. And the hinge point is point four, which means that is point four is where some positive, really good positive change happens, or something really good comes out of it. And then anything less than point four, it doesn't mean it's bad, but it's not as good, right? And then he lists some things that are bad. I really don't have the time, but I'm gonna show it to you anyway because I think it's beneficial. Pull it up real quick. I'll show you Hattie's visible learning. Like I said, I think he may be retired now. It'd be interesting if somebody takes his mantle and continues this. Let's see if I can pull something up. Okay, yeah, I'll pull this one up. Okay, yeah, this is really good. All right. Ba, 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 ba. All right. Just real quick, because this is good stuff. All right. This is only a small, he does like 200 things. This is a small snapshot. So here, the year, I don't know what year this was for, because he does it for each year, right? Because everything changes year to year. So in whatever year this is, the number one thing that is positive for student learning was student visible learning. All right. Not sure what he meant by that. And then the second thing was formative teacher evaluation, acceleration, feedback. These are the top four things. The worst things for that year was television, holding a student back. So failing a student is bad. Never, we should never hold students back. Summer vacation is never good, right? Teachers subject matter knowledge. Here's an interesting one. Look at this one right here. Teacher subject matter knowledge. You know what that means? It doesn't really matter if a teacher knows the subject. Isn't that interesting? So you could be a great math teacher and know a little bit about math. Why? Because you can learn together. And if you don't know a lot about it, you're able to explain it simply. Okay. Um, so you don't have to know be an expert in a subject. In fact, I always tell schools you don't want an expert in the subject. You want somebody who knows about teaching and learning. They don't need to know about too much about the subject, right? Because listen, I don't know a lot about science. Well, I know good about it. I don't know a lot about science. Okay, I know some are curious about science, but I don't know a lot about science. But I bet you I can go out there and teach an amazing science class because it's not about the knowledge; it's about how you present the content. It's about the curriculum, the approaches. You will find that experts in a given field, they're horrible teachers, right? Because they're like, why don't you know this? This is right, and they're not able to scaffold properly. Right? I think that's interesting. But look at visible learning. Look at homework. Homework falls below the point two. So what you're seeing now in a lot of modern schools nowadays, they're not even assigning homework anymore, which I don't know if I agree with because of the flipped classroom perspective. But a lot of schools are not even assigning homework any longer because it's been found through research not to be very beneficial. I kind of agree and I kind of disagree with not assigning homework. Questioning, asking questions is very beneficial. Look at that. Parental involvement, parents being involved. That's above the hinge point, right? So we got to get parents involved. Peer tutoring. What did I say yesterday? They will listen more to their peers, to that eighth grader, before they listen to you. Peer tutoring. Look at that. That's 0.55. Metacognitive strategies. Anybody remember what metacognition is? We talked about it on the first day. What is metacognition? Irene, you remember? Metacognition is thinking about your thinking. Okay. We want learners to think about their thinking. So they ask questions. They get that's how they become curious. Okay. Um, Direct instruction. All right. That's why we're always going to need humans as teachers. That direct instruction is important, not through a PowerPoint slide, right? Acceleration. All right. What I'm going to do, let's do this. I'm going to see, so day two. Hey, day 3. Hold on a second. Day 3. Okay. Let's do this. We're going to take a 5-minute break, but I'm going to tell you what the objectives that we're going to cover when we come back. The objectives we're going to cover. When we come back, we're going to identify the most common instructional error in teaching of the 4 core skills: listening, speaking, reading, and writing, and describe corrective best practices. We're going to do it briefly. This right here, normally takes me a week under the regular course. So we're going to go, I'm only going to give you an overview. I'm not going to go into detail. Explain why listening is the most undertaught skill and describe at least 2 evidence-informed listening strategies. Distinguish between fluency-focused and accuracy-focused speaking tasks and explain when each is appropriate. Describe the pre and during and after reading framework and explain what teacher reading versus reading assignment looks like. Explain why writing instruction must address process, not only product. Articulate why schools cannot be healthy or effective when isolated from communities. Distinguish between a mission statement and a vision statement and explain why both are essential to a school's identity. Make a credible and specific commitment to their own ongoing professional development. Okay? Now, notice all of these objectives are what? They're what? What's the word I'm looking for? The acronym I'm looking for? All these objectives are what we talked about yesterday: specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, timely. They're
Smart.
smart. All of these objectives are smart. Okay. In fact, when we come back, we're gonna type at least one smart objective in the chat box. All right, come back at 11:10. Take a 5-minute break. Come back at 11:10, and we'll start day 3 module. All right. Do we have everybody back? Why is what's going on with my camera? Okay. All right. Let's start day 3 module. Before we start the modules for day 3, I want to get any questions that you may have. So I want to make sure I have time. I give time for you guys to ask me any questions that you want to ask regarding your teaching, regarding anything that we have covered. Anyone have anything? Any question you want to ask me? No one has any questions regarding your teaching, your specific situation, something that you've been thinking about, something you might want to improve?
No. So far so good.
Not just about this course, but just in general.
Good morning,
Hello?
Dr. A. I
Good
have a
morning.
question.
Sure.
See, I really like it when you said that for teaching, you really don't have to be very specific about teaching. You can belong to any field unless and until you know how to teach.
Yeah.
I'm the person basically. I have shifted my career towards teaching, like yours. You want to be a military man, and I want to become a doctor as a dietitian and a nutritionist. But unfortunately, I didn't become one. I shift my field towards teaching because I feel like I can teach better. But somehow, somewhere, I really feel like maybe when I'm teaching something, I should have gained enough knowledge or a particularly any certain certification to move on further. Uh, Like, how should I explain?
Yeah, I think I know what you're saying, but I'm gonna let you finish your thought.
Hmm.
So is it a confidence issue?
Yes, sometimes it's a confidence too, because people
So
in our field they have B.Ed, MS, certain certifications, and I don't belong to those certifications. I belong to science field,
so
and
let
I'm
me say this.
shifting to yes.
Let me say this. A lot of people, okay, they can have all the certificates in the world, but unless they went to a really specialized school of education, like they went to a college of education where they had to do internships, they went deep into pedagogy. They went deep into andragogy for 2 years of their degree or 3 years of their degree, and they had to take state tests or a certain national test and get certified and credentialed in teaching and learning. Okay, then a lot of people just because they took a degree online or they got a degree from, you're just as qualified as they are, is what I'm saying. Now, people who actually went to a college of education and went through that rigorous process, and it's hard. It is not easy to become a certified teacher. It is hard. You'd be surprised how hard it is. But colleges of education, they normally do a very good job, and they have a lot of time, right? They have about 3 years. Right, the first year you do your mandatory classes, the first year and a half, but then for 2 years, 2.5 years, you're diving into really what it takes to become an excellent educator. You're doing internships, right? You're doing practicums. You're writing portfolios, right? So when you come out, like you're ready for it. You know a lot. The average person who didn't go through a college of education, they don't know a lot, right? So number one, the first thing I want to say to you is don't feel like they know more than you because you have a science degree and they might have some type of certificate. Don't feel that way because a lot of those people did not go to a strict certified school of education. Okay, that's number
Okay.
one. Now they're going to act like, remember what I said earlier. Pride plays a big role in teaching and learning. And the most prideful people are the people who don't know because they are replacing their skill set with pride. So they got to have that, that I'm I have a degree from here and I've been working here. They don't have anything else that they feel they don't have the skill set, right? So they gotta replace their skill set with what their degree says. All right. Just because you have a degree in something doesn't mean you're going to be a great teacher. All right. Just because you have a teaching license don't mean you're going to be, because you got to now implement. It's an ongoing process. That's number one. Under that same breath, I would say to you, do as much. If you can get credential, where are you from? Pakistan?
Pakistan.
Yeah, I don't think Pakistan really has like schools of education like that or licensing. I think you guys have a different process. But
Uh,
if you go ahead.
yeah, we do have a school of educations, but not licensed.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think that's like a license. I think if you go through the school of education, that's like an automatic license, right?
Yes.
So if somehow, some way you can get into a school of education and go through that, which probably you probably can at this point, then do what you're doing now, right? Take courses, get as much knowledge about it, and there's something called a guy named Donald Freeman called class action research. Become the best educator that you can. You can actually attend Donald Freeman's. He holds conferences all the time. His book is actually online for free, right? Class action research. And do as much as you can. Get as many tools in your toolbox and develop your advocacy. Feel confident. Know that you don't know, and then follow the best practices and research them. Become a social scientist. Learn what works for you. Learn where your comfort zone is, and then force yourself out of that comfort zone. right? You should always be forcing yourself out of that comfort zone, right? Always trying new things and then recording it, documenting it, thinking about it. That's what class action research is about. That's what the post method condition is about. That's what complexity is about. Complexity theory is about. It's about challenging yourself. There's no one. This is not a drive through. Education is not a drive through kind of thing where you just go order it and then go to the other window and you pick up your product, right? It Education is even harder than medical school in that, if somebody doesn't want, and I know a lot of doctors medical doctors who don't really want to be doctors, but they're good at it because they have the skill set. They know what to do when this situation happens, but they don't really like being a doctor. In education, you gotta kind of like this because we're underpaid, we're underappreciated, right? And people don't respect us. And the reason why people don't respect us because everybody thinks this job is easy,
And it
right?
isn't. It's not
And
easy.
it's easy. It's probably the second hardest job in the world. The first hardest is being a parent.
Agreed.
Parent is the hardest job in the world. The second hardest job in the world is being the kid to somebody else, being a parent to somebody else's kids. And that's what you are for 7 to 1 o'clock or whatever the school day is. That's a hard, difficult job, right? And so, you know that this is a career that is there's no box, right? There's no guide to say if you do this, this, and this is going to happen, right? So if you're a medical doctor, I can prescribe somebody some medication, and I'm fairly sure that this medication is going to do these things, right? And if it doesn't do these things, I can go back and prescribe them another medication. But 9 times out of 10, it's probably going to work. Do clinical trials. I can look at the clinical trials and say these things are going to work, right? Right. That's and that doesn't require any compassion. That doesn't require once you know it, right? I mean, yeah, medical doctors have to continue education, obviously, to learn the new innovations and all that good stuff. But their job it's not easy. I'm not gonna say it's easy to be a doctor, but they can go in and they can apply a strategy that they know that 80% of it is going to work. We can't do that. We can't say if I do project-based learning that 80% is going to work, or 70% is going to work, or 90% is going to work. We can't say if I do these things, all the kids are going to pass the test unless I give them the answers. We can't make those predictions, right? Our job, our career is one that there's no definitive rules. There's no guarantees in what we do. Because again, as I said, that's why I stated in the first day, you are not a teacher. Because no one teaches anyone anything. People teach themselves. People decide whether they want to learn, whether they want to accept the information. Because we all have an amygdala, we all have an RES, and we all have frontal lobes. We all go through things. All right. So I'm saying all that to say, just continue to do what you're doing. Be positive. Know that all you can do is what you can do. Learn as much as you can and keep on putting one foot in front of the other. And that's all you can do. Do the best practices. The moment you stop doing the best practices, this moment you stop planning, the moment you stop learning profiling, the moment you start backwards mapping, all the things that we talked about, that's when things fall apart. Okay.
Right.
All right. Listening, I'm going to talk, and again, typically in the TESOL course, I would spend a week on this, but I'm going to do it. This is an overview. Ultimately, regardless of what you teach, you're actually teaching these competencies, teaching learners how to be good listeners, how to be good speakers, how to read well, and how to write. I always tell my teachers, any teacher who works for me, Every teacher is a reading teacher, even the physical education teacher. Every teacher should be giving students something to read, even if it's just small. Every teacher is a writing teacher to an extent, right? You think about it in math class. In math class, there are word problems, right? And a lot of times, in order to solve the word problems, you got to write a response, a short response, right? Why? Because these are skills that they need in their life. They need to know how to be good listeners. They need to be able to speak well, articulate themselves well. They need to know how to read for themselves so they can have agency, right? And understand and comprehend what they read. And they need to be decent, not perfect writers. They don't need to be Shakespeare, but they need to know how to communicate things in writing, even if it's just short responses. So ultimately, regardless of what you teach, those 4 competencies are the money, is what I call the money. So let's just go over them briefly. Every listening activity, or everything that you do is a listening activity. Okay? Everything that you do is a listening activity. Okay? It doesn't matter. Okay? When you listen, when you are promoting good listening skills, you got to make sure, number one, you're giving clear instructions. You have to make sure the instructions that you give are clear, they're understandable, right? You got to make sure in a listening activity that the students know what they're listening to, right? Just like I showed you what your objectives are today, they got to know. We're going to listen to a short, we're going to listen and watch, or we're going to listen to a short audio about how to bake a cake. This prepares the students to hear, to what they're going to hear. Okay, we're going to listen to, so you have to be clear instructions, and you have to make sure that the audio is within their range. Remember the ZPD, it got to be within their capability. That's a part of SMART objectives, right? That's achievable. That falls under achievable. So you got to make sure that the lexis is word chunks, and the vocabulary are within their range of understanding. All right, so you got to make sure it's appropriate. Also, you need to point out what we call quicks, KWIC, keywords in context. So if you know there may be some words that they might not know, 2 or 3 words, you need to say that in advance. All right, you need to, so it'll look something like this. All right, guys, after I go over the objectives, today we're going to listen to a short audio about how to bake a cake. Now, in this audio, you might hear some words, and I'll have them written down. Here are 3 of these words you might need help with. Blend, right? There's another word we can say. Preheat, right? And another word may be another word in context. Blend, heat, preheat. And grease. Okay, so you believe that these might be words that they might have problems with when they listen. You're predicting, right? Now, all of these words. Now, keep this in mind. These are not difficult words, because in the audio there may be a difficult word, but it's not in context to the greater theme. Okay. In this case, the audio is about baking a cake. So if the speaker kind of goes off topic and use a word that has nothing to do with baking a cake, you don't need to deal with that word. Okay. In fact, if the student says, "Teacher, the speaker said a word I didn't understand," he said, "Congratulations," right? Well, congratulations had nothing to do with baking a cake. So what I'll do, I'm not going to ignore the student. I'm going to parking lot that word. I'm going to always have a parking lot on my board. Okay, that's a parking lot. I'm going to get to, once we get everything else out of the way, then I'll ask that, because I want them to focus on the context. Remember, context is everything. So All right, guys, today we're going to listen to an audio prompt about baking a cake. These three words, preheat, greased, and blend, you're going to hear. Blend means to mix. To mix. Grease means to make slippery, or to make slippery. All right. So something doesn't stick. In this case, something doesn't stick. All right. And in this case, so the cake doesn't stick to the pan. Right. And then what was the other word I said? Blend, mix. What was the other word? Blend, blend, grease, and preheat. Preheat means to turn the oven on before you put the mixture or the cake in the oven. It's to turn it on. Because if you put it in the oven before you put the cake in the oven before you preheat the oven, that's going to change your cooking times, and it can either burn or make your cake burn or overcook or undercook. So you preheat so you can manage the cooking time. All right. And you may have seen your mother do that. So you see your mother turn the oven on before she put the food in the oven. She's preheating, right? You see her put the butter in the pan and there's nothing else in the pan. She's greasing the pan, right? And we see her use the blender or taking the spatula and she's blending all the eggs and the flour and the milk together. That's called blending, right? Okay. And we show them the words. We show them the definition. If you want to take a step further, you can even say, blend in this case is a verb, and preheat is a verb in this case, and then grease is a verb. You can go into that depending on what you want to accomplish. Now, don't go into verbs and all that if that's not a part of the objective. If that's not a part, if you're not dealing with any grammar in that, you don't need to talk about whether they're verbs or not. Okay. So that is what we call preparing them to listen. Do you tell them what they're going to hear? Tell them what they're going to hear. Do quicks. All right. I'm sorry. Tell them what they're going to hear. That's setting context. Quicks, words that you think they may not understand in context to the prompt. Okay. And then tell them what they hear, set context, and then quicks. Okay. The other thing that you're going to do, the final thing you're going to do is anytime you give someone, your students, a listening activity, or you want them to listen well, you're going to what we call preload the questions. Because typically, every textbook, if there's a listening activity or there's a reading activity, there's typically questions that go with it, right? Well, you're going to preload the questions. So before they listen to anything, you're going to tell them what the questions are. And and here's the trick. You're going to do it one by one. You're not going to give them all the questions at the same time. So whether you use the questions in the textbook or you create your own questions, you're going to give them the first question. And then you're going to ask them, because by this time, you have done what? You've set context, so they know what it's about. You gave them quicks, right? Set context, and you gave them quicks, right? Now they have context, they have quicks. Now when you give them the first question, you're going to ask them to predict. What do you think is going to happen? All right. And then this is an opportunity for them to what? Now talk to each other. Another good strategy, another nugget in teaching is to get the students to talk to each other about the lesson as much as possible. What do you think is going to happen? Don't tell me, talk to you, take about 2 minutes, talk to your friends about what do you think is going to happen for question 1, or what do you think the answer will be for question 1. Okay, and they talk to each other, and then they can report back. Each group can report back. This is before you play anything. Okay, now the other important thing to note about listening, because the key is to prepare them to listen, is the prompts that you use, the listening opportunity, whether it's a video or just an audio, right? They should be very short. Okay. Don't give them something that's 10 minutes long. I would say any 1 minute and a half, 90 seconds to about 3 minutes, 4 minutes tops. Why? Can anybody tell me why? Number one, you're going to reduce cognitive load. You're going to make that effective filter shorter. That's number one. All these things are doing is reducing that effective filter, right? Number two, let's say you have 5 questions that you're going to ask them. Well, that means you're going to preload 5 questions. That means you're going to play the audio 5 times in its entirety. 5 times you're going to play it. So you're going to go through this drill. Okay, here's the next question. Now they've already heard it. You're still going to go through the drill. Okay, what do you think the answer? Well, they've heard the whole prompt, but you're going to still, because they were listening for question 1. And they're going to talk to each other again. They say, well, I already heard it. No, I heard this. No, he didn't say this. And you're going to hear them kind of disagree on what they heard. And then they can report back and you play it again. Right? And then you go to question 3. Ask them to predict. And you play it again. So now they've heard it at least 5 times. The same prompt. 5 times. All right? They've heard those vocabulary 5 times. They got to talk about it different 5 times. And over that, they're improving their listening ability. Okay? So the magic number is always 5. When we model something, when we model an activity, it's always 5 times we model it. Don't think you say something, you know for a fact, you can't say something to somebody 1 time and they get it. Right? You talk to anybody, you say something, huh? I hear you say that. What you say? 5 times is the magic. When you model, it's 5 times. In TESOL, we have something called the teacher paradigm. Student, teacher, student, teacher, student, then class. So when the teacher models, the teacher's going to model it 5 times. And it goes something like this. What do you do for exercise? Well, it goes like this. What do you do for exercise? This is under ESL scenario. What do you do for exercise? I run. 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 All right? 5 times. That's teacher. That's just me doing that before anything else. Before I ask them to say anything, I model it 5 times. And then I will go to the student, teacher student. What do you do for exercise? And the student will say, I run 5 times. And we go through the whole paradigm. 5 is a magic number. Okay. And then they're going to hear 5 just from the modeling and then more time in practice. All right. It's always model practice. Okay. And that's, in short, that's how you, and again, if this was the regular course, this conversation would be a whole day about listening. Okay. I'm just doing a quick preview. Speaking. Okay. Speaking is when we get students, every time that we get students to speak, it's the same thing with listening. We got to prepare them to listen, to speak. Okay. So again, speaking is always connected to an activity. Okay. So we don't teach speaking in isolation. Like we can teach listening in isolation. We can have a whole class where the objectives is about listening. And we can go do that. In fact, that's probably going to be a whole class, right? right? Because you think if I'm playing the audio 5 times, right, 5 times 3, and then asking questions. I mean, 5. If the audio is 3 minutes long, I'm playing at least 5 times. That's 15 minutes right there. They talking to each other. That's another couple minutes. It'll be the end of the class. So that's a whole lesson. That's an entire lesson, right? But speaking is never taught in isolation. Okay, so you're not going to have a lesson just on speaking. Okay, speaking will always be connected to the listening. What did I say? Guys get together to talk about it, discuss. It'll be connected to the reading activity. It'll be connected to a writing activity. All right, to a reading activity. Again, you would do the same thing. You would preload. You would tell them what they're going to read about. You give them the context. You're going to give them the quicks, and then you have questions, and they're going to look for the answers one question at a time, and then they discuss what the answer is, and then that discussion, right? Or they'll make a prediction. That's speaking, and then they'll discuss. Or they can make an individual prediction. They can make their own discussion. They report back out. That's all discussion. So the key is don't ever worry about teaching speaking in isolation. You're not going to teach a speaking class. I hate when people say, well, this is a speaking class. No, it's really a listening and reading class where the students have to speak a lot. So the difference in a speaking class or a speaking lesson is you're going to definitely require probably everybody in the class to say something to participate versus maybe something different in another type of class or lesson. Okay. But the key is when we're teaching, we want as many learners to talk as possible. Now, the other part of this is we have to number 2, remember, and this is a hard thing for me, is to shut up. Don't talk too much. Try to reduce your teacher talk. So let's go back to yesterday. Remember, we said at the beginning of the unit, they may not know a lot about the unit. Remember we said that, right? So that you're going to have to do some talking to help them kind of get acclimated to the unit, right? You're going to do some lecturing. That's not really a lecture, but you got to do some things where you're doing a lot of talking. As that unit goes on, remember we said maybe it's a 3-week unit, 4-week unit, whatever it is. As that unit goes on, you should be reducing your teacher talk. So week 1, day 1 of the unit, let's say you're talking for 80% of the time in the class, which is a lot. By week 2, day 6, that'd be week 2, day 6. That's Sunday, right? You should reduce it down to 50%, 60%. By week 2, day 10, right? That Thursday, you should be down about 40%. Week 3, day 11, is that right? Sunday, you should be down now to about 30%. By that Wednesday, you should be almost quiet in class, 5-10%, because they should be, at that point, they should have enough, because they had about 3 weeks worth of content, right? Where they can start talking about it and doing things and being more independent within that unit. That's what you always go. And so 2 things are happening simultaneously. One, they're speaking more, hence now you're teaching them speaking and they're working on their speaking. They're speaking more. They're showing agency, independence, right? 2, as they speak more, what's happening in regards to blooms? No, that's the effective filter. Yeah, so you're right that if they speak more, they come more calm. Their filter is lowering, right? That's evidence that they have, because if their filter was big, they wouldn't say anything, right? But regards to blooms, what? You're going what? Up the blooms, right? You're going from knowledge to comprehension to applying to analyzing to synthesizing to evaluation. Because the more they're speaking, the more they feel comfortable, the more they understand what's going on. They can start to apply, because speaking means they're probably applying right? They're moving. That's evidence that they're moving up blooms when they're speaking. As evidence. And that also tells you that they are prepared to write. They are prepared to write. I'm taking a break a second. They are prepared to write. All right. This is evidence. Remember what I said yesterday. Data-driven decisions. You're always taking that learner profiling. You're seeing who's speaking and who's not speaking. You're challenging the ones who are speaking. You're telling the ones who are talking too much. You're kind of asking them, redirecting their attention so you can get other kids to speak. So if you, because you always have the smart kids, right? Or the kids who want to dominate the lesson to show you that they know what's going on. And that's good. So now as the unit goes on, I hope you guys are getting this. As the unit goes on, now you can start differentiating instruction. You can start teaching up because now you're going to say, all right, Sarah knows what's going on. She's doing a lot of talking, but she's now not allowing other kids to talk. So now you're going to give Sarah another task that's going to keep her in a new zone of ZPD, a new sweet spot in the ZPD. Give her another task. Now you're differentiating. And then you're allowing Miriam to now giving Miriam an opportunity to talk because Sarah is always interrupting Miriam or not giving Miriam an opportunity to speak. Now Miriam now has an opportunity to speak and show that she's moving, giving you evidence that she's moving up blooms. All right. This is, you can see how you so when you're a teacher, you just give the content and you don't care who's speaking and you allow Sarah to do all the talking. But when you're an educator, you differentiate, you don't punish Sarah for being smart and being motivated. You say, Sarah, I got you to do something else. But Miriam, I'm concerned that you're not as engaged. So now you have a lane to do your thing. So you're like a conductor when you're an educator. You're conducting, you're seeing what holes need to be filled, what gaps need to be completed, right? And you kind of orchestrating this whole thing. And a lot of that is going to happen not at the beginning of the unit when you're doing a lot of talking. It's going to happen in the middle of the unit where you can look back, shut up, and see what they're doing and observe so you can kind of fill in the spots, right? You can make corrections. You can say, okay, you do here. I want you to switch here. You can't do that really at the beginning of the unit, okay? So that's why teacher noticing is very important, right? It's hard to get to this point, guys, where this works, where you have what we call, that's why we named the textbook Smooth Moves. If you look at the textbook, we named the textbook Smooth Moves. Why? Because when you're doing direct instruction, it's almost like you're dancing. Like you don't dance like this, you dance in a flow. Like every movement flows with the next, right? And that's how teaching has to be. You have to go from the warmer to the modeling to the, each stage of the lesson in a smooth flow, right? Because if you compartmentalize it all, then it doesn't make sense. Everything has to be meshed well together. All right. For writing, let's talk about writing for a moment. Writing is the most difficult skill. Writing is a higher order skill. Don't ask your students to do a lot of writing, okay, in the beginning of the unit. Make sure that they're listening, they're talking, they're reading. So when you get to the part of the unit when you want them to start writing things, even if it's just one sentence, they now have enough ammunition. A gun won't shoot if it doesn't have any bullets in it. Huh? Right? You can't shoot a gun if it doesn't have any bullets in it. So what you're doing at the beginning of the unit is you're giving them ammunition, giving them things to think about, giving them things to say. So when it's time to write, they now have something to say because they've talked about it. They've heard it. They talked about it. They read about it. They talked about it, right? Notice I keep on saying talk. Talk, talk. You want them talking on task, right? Group works to you. And there's many different ways to talk. It can be also, you can have them do things on a voice recorder, like mix it up. Some students are not going to, they're shy. They're not going to want to talk in class for whatever reason. Can they say it on the voice recorder? Okay. All this, what I say to teachers is everything you do throughout the unit is to prepare them for the writing. Okay. Prepare them for writing. Okay. When you prepare them for writing, you, number one, you make sure they have something to say. So all that work is you trying to form opinions. That's another thing too. Their opinions matter in context to what you're talking about, because everything that we write is an opinion. Even the things that we think are facts are we always inserting our perspective through our lens, right? Through our perspective. And that's what makes writing good. Is someone can look at a fact and then see something very nuanced in the fact that somebody else didn't notice. You go, wow, that's a great observation about that fact, right? But again, you have to prepare the learner for that. Knowing that writing is not about the product, it's about the process. Okay. Writing is not about the finished product. And this is another, and I'm so glad that Dr. Ashrat was on the call yesterday and she was honest about what was going on in her school, because that's a good point of reference. For her university, they just want the kids to, the learners to produce a paper. They don't care about what the process, how that learner got to that point. They just want them to produce a paper. And so the learners are going to respond. So when you go back and ask the learner about the paper that they wrote, they're not going to be able to talk about it because in essence, they didn't write it, right? So remember that writing is about the process. When you teach writing, you're teaching the process of writing. And that, let me say this. This is gonna blow your mind. Grammar has nothing to do with writing. Grammar has nothing to do with writing. Let me explain. Yes, grammar is important. Grammar is important for coherency. The C's that we have in writing: coherency, cohesion, conciseness. Yes, if someone has bad grammar, it's going to take away from their writing. However, I'm talking about the teaching of writing and making sure they can write well. You can have great grammar and not be able to write one sentence. Because if you don't have anything to write about, what's the point of grammar? You won't be able to construct sentences because you have to have an idea, right? It's like having a car without an engine. You can have a car, right? And it has leather seats and a sunroof and nice wheels and a radio. But if there ain't an engine in that daggone thing, you ain't moving nowhere. So writing as a process. Too many teachers focus on grammar and then wonder why their students are not good writers and have problems with writing, because they're teaching writing as a product and they think that grammar can solve that problem. It cannot. Grammar is a secondary thing. Take it from Dr. Ray, and you tell anybody, you give them my phone number. Every last one of you got my phone number. You tell them Dr. Ray said it. Don't ever teach grammar in class as a lesson. You never teach a grammar lesson. Teach grammar points. Yes. Teach grammar points. And when do you teach grammar points? When you're teaching reading. Reading is the best way to teach grammar. Because when they're reading something, you can point out the grammar point that you want to point out. So let's say the unit is the title for this unit is things that happened in the past. That's the theme for the unit. Remember, we said we always teach in themes so we can set context. So this theme is things that happened in the past, right? The history teacher is going to talk about something that happened in the past. The PE teacher might talk about the history of soccer, football, right? The science teacher is going to maybe talk about the Big Bang Theory or something, or some famous scientist from the past. And the language arts teacher is going to talk about narrative writing, because narrative writing is what? Stories, and all these stories are in the past. So here, the grammar points that you're going to cover is what? Past tense, right? The different forms of past tense. And I can highlight that in my writing, because now I'm reading a narrative, and the whole narrative is what? In the past tense. So I can highlight that grammar point and show them through reading what past tense looks like. Past, progressive, simple past, whatever it is. Past participles. I can teach all that when I teach narratives. And I could do that not as a collective within teaching reading. So I'm not spending a lot of time on teaching the past tense. See, normally when we teach tenses, right, we have that chart, and it's the past tense, the present, how many tenses are there in the English language? 12. There's 12 different tenses in the English language, right? Right? Progressive, right? Present, past, right? And then each one of those have 4, right? And it's difficult, even for a native speaker. Is that the past progressive? Is that a past part? What is that? Right? Because we try to teach it through that chart. No, you teach it through real life, authentic transaction, through reading. And you point out to them, all right, this is the simple past. Notice the author wrote it in the simple past. And you teach it as a grammar point throughout that unit. This way, you don't focus on grammar, but you're teaching writing style. And you're still staying on content with what the primary objectives are, or the primary standards are for that unit that you're trying to cover in that unit. All right. Don't spend your time on teaching a lot of grammar. Okay. Your students can be brilliant and horrible at grammar. Okay. But here's the thing. If they're doing a lot of reading, they're going to be great at grammar. The reason teachers teach grammar all day long and people are still bad at grammar. Why? Because people don't read a lot. Reading is what's going to make you good at grammar. Reading will also make you a better writer, because it's not only are you looking and seeing the grammar and action, but also you're looking at people's writing style and seeing how people tell stories and explain things, and that informs how you write. This is why when we start a unit, again, we focus on listening. Everything's integrated. Everything speaking is integrated in the listening. Speaking is integrated in the reading. And we do a lot of listening and we do a lot of reading, right? With this speaking a lot. And all those instances, you're teaching a grammar lesson. You can point out the grammar points. But don't spend a week going over all the past tenses and present tenses and future tenses and all that nonsense. It's nonsense. They just need to read a lot. You're, especially if you're a humanities teacher, if you're teaching language arts, if you're teaching social studies, history, whatever. It should be listening and reading intense. And then when the time is appropriate, they should be writing. All right. Starting off with what we call short constructive responses, 1 or 2 sentences, and then as they get better and better, they can start writing a paragraph, start writing essays, whatever is appropriate. Okay, but that should happen at the middle of the unit. Make sure they have the ammunition to speak. Okay, don't do a lot of focusing on grammar. Now, on the same token, make sure you are modeling the proper grammar in your speech. So make sure you're using. So make sure because that's how they're going to learn grammar, is what they hear from you and other teachers. Okay, that is more of a grammar lesson than any activity, worksheet, PowerPoint you come up with about grammar points. Okay, because you're not there to teach them to be teachers. You're there to teach them how to be great thinkers, to solve problems. Okay, so don't focus on a lot of grammar. Okay, point out the grammar point. All right, you notice the core competency is not grammar. The core competency is reading, writing, speaking, and listening. They are the core competencies in every subject, including physical education. Okay. Writing. What more can I say about writing as a process? So when we're teaching writing, we're teaching pre-writing strategies. We're highlighting the importance of the brainstorming. We're teaching them how to brainstorm. We're using different strategies. Again, I don't have enough time to go over those strategies, but in the full course, we go in detail the strategies. But pre-writing strategies, you're showing them, you're spending a lot of time on brainstorming. You're showing them how to outline, how to organize their thoughts in a logical way. You're emphasizing the importance of drafting, the first draft, the second draft. Let me ask, how many drafts should we ask from students to have when they're writing something? They're writing a paragraph. How many drafts should they write? Anyone?
Three.
So typically everybody says 3, right? First draft, second draft, final draft. The answer to the question is as many drafts as they can until they feel comfortable that their writing answers the question or fulfills the assignment. Their coherency is what? Making sure your ideas are what? So in writing, we always want to make sure that our learners' writing is coherent. What's coherency? Understandable. Is what they wrote understandable? What they have written understandable? 2, cohesion. Cohesion. Are all the ideas connected? Are they breaking unity? If they're writing about movies, if they're writing about their favorite superhero, right? Did the writing start to talk about the villains? Right? If it started to talk about the villains, they broke unity, right? So cohesion. Did they use literary devices that build the cohesion, like transitions? First, second, therefore, after that, consequently, for instance, for example, in conclusion. Are they using transitions? Are they using transitions based, not relying on those signal words, right? That's what we're looking for. Typically, for younger students, we're looking for whether what they have written is coherent, and what does it have? Is it cohesive? Is it all the ideas gel together? Later on in their writing, we're looking for another C word: how concise they are. Can they write straight to the point? In today's times, another thing I want to say, teachers, this burns me up. This whole word count thing, right? You remember teachers when you was in school, you got to write 500 words. I want you to write 1,000 words, right? You write 999 words. She's going to take points off, right? Don't do that. You tell your students, you write until you feel comfortable that you have answered or satisfied the question at hand. Did you provide enough evidence? Did you give examples? Do you have a clear topic sentence? Did you provide a conclusion, right? Did you provide enough evidence? And you allow them to determine, and then you give them enough in the process, enough time to come back to you before the final grade and consult with you. So when you're teaching writing, the middle to the end of that unit, you become a writing teacher and a facilitator. And you're going to have a lesson or two where it's going to be where they come to you and you're going to have a desk and you're going to be sitting down and you're going to have another desk facing the opposite way. And or however you set it up, where they take their drafts and you talk to them about their drafts. Look, you could have included an example here a little bit more. And you're not going to talk anything about grammar really, unless the grammar is so bad where you can't understand it, right? But you can say, but you're going to really be focused on content. You know what? Tell me a little bit more about this character. You didn't say a lot. And here's an idea that you didn't really develop, right? You know, you only have one main point. I think you need more than one main point. Your topic sentence is really not clear. Do you have a topic and a controlling idea? Right? You didn't end this. There's no ending to this. Where's your conclusion? Right? So go through that process. Now, this is a daunting task, and this is where technology can help you out. All right? Utilize technology in this case. But when it comes to drafting, and also set limits so they're not too dependent on you either. Typically, I normally tell teachers, say, hey, look, I'm only going to sit down with you twice on this. All right. One time it's going to be one-on-one, and one time it's going to be online. So this is where you can utilize something like Google Classroom. So you gave them a personal feedback and you gave them an online feedback, and you can organize it in the Google Classroom. All right, this saves you time and effort, and it stops you from being bombarded. Is this okay, teacher? Is this okay, teacher? Is this okay, teacher? Because one student will come to you 20 times, right? And they'll drive you nuts. Okay, so tell them, okay, now that we read this story or we read this book or whatever it is, we're going to now write about it, or we dealt with this topic. Now we're going to write about it, and we're going to write a paragraph, or we're going to write an essay, or whatever you write, or we're going to write 2 sentences. Give them one in the drafting process, one-on-one feedback with you, and it doesn't have to be long. It could be 2 minutes. It could be 5 minutes. It should be short. And then one digital feedback, either email or no. I like using whatever your school might have an LMS that does this, or use the Google Classroom. If they don't, Google Classroom is free. And then give them a quick response, written response about what they can do in a way that they can understand it. Okay. Now, here's what teachers do. Teachers don't give them feedback. They turn the paper, the student submits the assignment to the teacher, and then the teacher just marks it all up. Yeah, the teacher just mark everything up, circling, Xing, question marks, statements. Don't do that. Help them in the process as they're writing it, but don't become a crutch. So that's why you only give them two opportunities: one face-to-face, one digital, and then they got to kind of figure it out on their own after that. Okay, but don't become a crutch. All right. Okay, I'm going to stop there for that part. Okay, because again, I can get really deep. I can go 5 hours on that. Let's take another 10-minute break. Okay. Some people need to go pray or whatever. Take a 10-minute break. We'll come back at 12:25, and then we'll finish modules 3 and 4 up, and I think we'll finish 3, 4, and 5, and then we'll be finished. All right. So I'll see you at 12:25. Check, 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 check. Can you guys hear me? All right. All right. Let's talk. Let's talk schools for a second. And I try to integrate this idea of school versus what you have to do. Quite frankly, schools in Saudi Arabia are businesses. They're businesses. And it has gotten worse. It wasn't when I first got here in 2011. It was actually a little bit better because you had individual owners who started schools, and the owners would be in the building, right? Like every day, all day, and they cared about the school. They might not have been pedagogues. They might not have known a lot about education, but they cared. And somebody like me could go in and talk to them, and they would be like, and they would be honest. I don't know a lot about this. Can you help me out? Right? And they would put money into programming, into professional development, into doing the things that might make their school become better. They were still looking to make money and profits, but they care more about the building. After COVID, something happened. Well, it started actually before COVID. The Saudi stock market came, and a lot of people realized they can create a public company through schools. So you have big companies start buying schools up, and now you see like CEOs and people in the building. There's no longer owners in the building, right? These are all employees, and they can care less. They're going to get their paycheck, whether they're the CEO or vice president, whatever their title is. They're going to get a paycheck, right? Whether the school does good, bad, they're going to get a paycheck. If they don't get a paycheck, they'll sue the company, right? They take the company to court. Nobody really cares about the building. So somebody like me can come in and say, hey, look, I can help you guys with that. And they say, I don't care. In fact, I don't want you to come in because you're going to make me look stupid, right? And two, if I give you money, that might take away from my bonus or my commission because I'm here to keep costs down. Because they have these companies and they might do big contracts with other companies to do the training and to do other things, HR, and to streamline the process. Well, here's the problem. Schools are not businesses. If we run them correctly, they're not businesses. They We don't look to make money through education. That doesn't mean that education can't be profitable. It can be profitable, but over time, once you establish a great product and your school, your college, your institution is known for excellence, is known for standards, high standards, quality, right? And that happens over time. That doesn't happen overnight. You don't just build a building, hire some teachers, and say and make the claim, I have a wonderful school. Yeah, this is the greatest school ever. And take some pictures, put it on Instagram, and wow, amazing. Look at the students learning. This is mashallah, this is so great. Doesn't work like that. But it works like that here. So I want to kind of just give you a quick overview that schools are not businesses. But you got to understand that you're in an environment where schools are operating like businesses. And so they're going to put profit over outcomes all day long. Remember, we talked about expected outcomes, right? The first day. They're going to put profit over outcomes. They don't even care. They're going to pass. I have schools that I consult with right now that if we go and look at their academic record, let's say there's 1,000 students in the school. All 1,000 students have a 99 average. All 1,000. Every last one of them enrolled, whether they've been in school, not in school, miss a couple of days, every last one of them, mashallah. The students here, the teachers here, wonderful. All our students, A+. Every last one of them, right? We know that there's an issue right there. If all your students are passing in a school environment, then that is a problem, because we know in education there's something called the bell curve, right? Some people got to fail. Some people are going to most of the people are going to be average. And then you're going to have, on the other end of the curve, people are going to excel and have A's and, excel in the class. If everybody is failing, you got a problem. And if everyone's passing, you have a problem, right? I want to talk about the mission statement. The mission statement versus a vision statement. If you look at a lot of these schools today, they might have a mission statement. It might be in the front of the building or written somewhere. And it goes a little bit something like this. ABC schools, it is the mission of ABC schools to be the best school in the Middle East or in Saudi Arabia. That's not a mission statement. But I guarantee you, if you go to most schools, it's going to read something like that. To be the best school in Saudi, to have the most number of students. It's something retarded, right? A mission statement should always be customer driven first. So if you go to Amazon's website and read their mission statement, it's going to read something like, it is the mission of Amazon to provide high quality products to customers as quickly as we possibly can, with ensuring the highest level of customer satisfaction. Something like that. It's always customer driven. A school's mission statement. Well, let's talk about the difference between a mission statement and a vision statement first. Let's go there. First of all, schools shouldn't have the mission statement on the board. They should have the vision statement on the board. Because the vision statement is one sentence. Mission statement is many statements. Because they deal with different. It's the vision is where the school or where the organization, where the company would like to see itself in the future. The mission is how the mission statements is how they will get there. What are the things that they're committed to do to see that vision come true? Okay. The vision typically never changes. The mission statements can change. And all of those statements need to be student or client driven. Okay. And if you look at many of the schools, you won't see that as a function. Also, when you look at the mission statement and it says to be the best, right? What is it really saying? It's really talking about how they're going to run that school. You can tell just by the mission statements and the vision statements how they're going to run that school. If it's not student focused, if it's not talking about how the student will look at the end of their experience, what the students will be able to be, who they will be and become. All right. Let's just explore this a little bit. I got a couple minutes. Let's explore this a little bit. I'm gonna share my screen. How? Let's see. Let's look. Somebody give me a company. Any famous company. Anybody give me a famous company we'll look at?
Almarai company.
Who?
Almarai company.
Almarai, all right, the juice company, right, the food company. Almarai company mission statement. All right. All right, let's look at Almarai. It says our mission to provide. Come on, what's wrong with their website? To provide quality and nutritious food and beverages that enrich consumers' lives every day. See how that's consumer focused, the client focus, right? It's not the company focus, about the consumer lives every day, right? I mean, that's their mission. Look at their vision. This is a simple mission statement. Their vision to grow our leading position as the trusted choice for food and beverages in the region, delighting consumers rather, with quality nutrition every day. I would argue that it should be swapped. This should be their vision and this should be their mission. But they're still both good. Okay. All right. This reads like a mission statement and that reads like a vision statement. But they're still good. Okay. And they still both what? Customer focused, consumer focused. Okay. Let's look at stop sharing for a second. Let's pull up Harvard University's mission and vision statement. All right. Let's look at their mission statement, their vision statement. Vision. Harvard Harvard College sets the standard for residential liberal arts and sciences education. We have committed to creating and sustaining conditions that enable all college students to experience an unparalleled educational journey that is intellectually, socially, and personally transformative. Student driven. Look at their mission statement. The mission of Harvard College is to educate citizens and citizen leaders for our society. We do this through our commitment to the transformative power of a liberal arts and sciences education, beginning in the classroom with exposure to new ideas and new ways of understanding and new ways of knowing. Students embark on a journey of intellectual transformation. Through a diverse learning environment where students live with people who are studying different topics, who come from different walks of life, and have evolving identities, intellectual transformation is deepened and conditions for social transformation are created. From this, we hope that students will begin to fashion their lives by gaining a sense of what they want to do with their gifts and talents, assessing their values and interests, and learning how they can best serve the world. See how that reads, more statements. That's mission statements should be longer. But notice it's what? Student driven. They want a transformative student, transformation, transformative, right? Right. And also, I have a problem with that, by the way, but I won't get into that. But they're stating, so you could read and say, I don't want my kids going to Harvard because they're telling me straight up they're going to change my. They want to change my kid. They want to transform them into what? Right. So, but at least they're being honest about it, right? And it's student focused, right? And I could take it to the bank. That's what they're going to do, right? Transform them. And it might not be something that I need to ask some questions. What are you transforming them into? Right? I need to ask some further questions. All right. But nevertheless, it is student focused. Let's look at a school in Saudi. I'm gonna try to pull up your school's mission statement. You guys go to Marif, right? Work at Marif. Marif. What is it? MAARIF? Is that what it is? Marif Education. Let's pull up their mission statement. Let's see. This is your school, right? Is this your company? That's not it? I thought you guys said you work at Marif.
Al-Marifa, not
Oh,
Al-Marif.
okay.
Marifa.
Well, let's just look at this one.
Okay.
This is a big company, and they're old too. They've been around for a long time. Well, let's look at their website. Now, notice everyone has what? Every company has what? Mission and vision statement, and they make it plain, right? Right? You look at two
Yes.
companies, Almari and Harvard. You see anything strange about this thing? Oh, there it is, vision statement. All right, this one is not bad. To foster enlightened skill and ethical generation that can competently contribute to the local and global transformation. That's actually not bad. This is probably one of the better ones I've seen. To offer the best quality education and learning experience to hire. All right, the mission. Okay, yeah, that's okay. To hire and train the best qualified educators in the ideal learning environment. These are actually good. Okay. I've seen some horrible ones in the Middle East that focused on finances. They focused on everything but the learners. This one is actually a good one. All right, they must have, somebody has their act together here. Because for years, I would go to schools and say, you need to change your vision statement. You need to change your mission statement. Because you guys are money focused and not talking about what you're going to do for students. So I challenge you guys today. Tomorrow, go back and see if you can find the mission statements for. Oh, let's go ahead since we're here. I'm curious now. How you pronounce? How you spell it? Marifa.
You start with Al and then Marifa. Al
L.
Marifa.
Spell it for me. LM.
A-L. A-L
L
first and
A
then
L
Marifa.
M A.
R-I-F-A.
Is it two A's?
No, no.
Yes.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yes.
REFA.
Yes.
All right, schools. This is in Almanacilla. You got school? Is this your school right here?
In Muncia.
Okay, yeah, I think this is your school. Let's see. Let's look at your school's mission statement and vision statement. This is your school right here.
Yes, yes.
Yes,
That's
yes.
all.
Oh, this is American Diploma, and you guys didn't have the standards, so you guys should be using Common Core.
Yes, we use it. Might grow here.
All right, so when I talked about standards, you guys should have been on top of it. So this is your school right here, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, I thought this was in Al Yamuk, not Manasseh.
No,
This is in
no,
Al Yamuk. Isn't this on Al Yamuk? I
no.
know.
No.
I've seen
No.
this.
In Muncia.
I'm here
This
next to Kurtu.
yeah, next to Corda, but by I know where the school is. It's by the compound, by E compound and Nekla compound across the street. That's this is Yamuk. All right.
No.
Yeah, Montesea is across the street. All right. Let's look for the mission statement. Ah, there it is. Vision and mission. Let's read it. Private schools that provide education, help, research, innovation. Oh, wow. What do you see here? I'm gonna go. Look at this. They don't even. Somebody didn't even bother to put one up. They put the Saudi 2030 vision up. Look at this. So that's problematic. So somebody who wrote this doesn't even know what a vision and mission statement is. So how do we make decisions in this school? What's the basis? What can the collective teacher faculty body, what can the collective faculty use to use as a foundation to make decisions in this school? If I was doing business with the school and doing a partnership with the school, and the owner or the investment company asked me to make a partner with the school, how do I know I'm in line with their values? They're just giving me 2030 vision 2030 stuff. Right? This is not saying much of anything. Right? It's not saying who they want the learner to be. See, remember when we read the Harvard one? They want to be transformative. Even the other one, I said it was okay. Let me go back to the other one real quick. I think I overshot it. Daggone it. Did I overshoot it? Yeah. Let's see. It's okay. This one's okay to foster an enlightened, skill, and ethical generation. I'll go with this. They want students to be ethical, enlightened, and ethical. Okay, got it. I'm okay with that. But what do we want the student to be here at Al Marifa? Just to follow the 2030 vision? That tells me what? The school's about money. Right? We're gonna try. Somebody wasn't even like this. Should have been the most important part of the website. That statement should be the what the website is built around. You understand what I'm saying? It should be built around that statement, because that is the statement where everybody can turn to and say, this is what our school is about. Those two statements. And it's not there. And as a principal, as an owner, as whatever, and not you as teachers, because you guys don't have anything to do with this. But whoever approved this website, that tells me just by this vision statement that they put up here, it tells me they don't know what they're doing. And I'm not saying, I don't mean to say anything poorly about the school, but I would say in their face, if I met the owner or the whoever's running the school, I would say, look, guys, I've been on your website and your mission and vision statement doesn't reflect well of your school. You need to change it. You need to sit at the table and decide what your vision and mission statement is. It cannot be the 2030 vision. Okay? This is somebody being lazy. All right? Because again, what are the founding principles of the school? What guides, what's the ethics that guides the school? All right? In anything that you do, in any business that you take part in, anything that you do, you run a family, you know, who's married here? Anybody married?
Why are you
Me?
pointing me?
Carol?
Why are you pointing me, Joy?
I'm sure, Carol, I'm sure when you selected your husband, I'm sure when you selected your husband, there were some founding principles that allowed you to select your husband. The founding principle. He stood on something, right? Am I right, Carol?
Sorry.
I say when you selected your husband,
Yeah.
there was some founding principles that
Yes.
there was some principles, there was some values that he had that said, you know what? This man could be my husband. Because he stands, right?
Amen. Exactly. And you know, some people they would ask you, what did you see in this man? I'm like, you people, you don't know. You just need to,
know. I know.
Yeah.
I know the foundation. And
Yeah.
right, that's important. Because even when he messes up, you know he still stands on the principles and values, right, in a foundation that you can rely on, that you can look at and say, this is why I selected him. Because even though he's not perfect, in no school, no organization, no person is perfect, he stands on a solid ground, right?
Yes.
You don't select somebody who cannot demonstrate that they stand on solid ground. You don't select that person. And it's normally through their actions, right? So if they act a fool and then they can't communicate or demonstrate that they could be unfoolish and be upright and straight and focused and have a foundation and have principles, then it's probably not a good person to select because they're telling you they're not about anything, right?
Yes,
So if you have
yes.
a school, if you can have a school that can't write a that doesn't, because before you lay one brick, you say, I want a learning environment. I want a school that does this one thing, or these two things, or these three things. And that is going to be how we make decisions. Huh? It's very important. It's very important to know where you're at. Okay. You can help them do that process, or you don't have to help them do a process, but you need to know that I'm working at a place that really doesn't know what their identity is, because they can't communicate it to a broader audience, right?
Yes.
We talked about lifelong learning. We talked about credentialing. There's no need to talk about that. I've actually, believe it or not, finished what I wanted to finish. The one more thing I want to do before I let you guys go is ask you guys to type a SMART objective, and I'm gonna help you out a little bit. I'm gonna put up the Bloom's taxonomy again. I want you to write a SMART objective for for, let's say this lesson is for a listening lesson. For a listening lesson. Okay, it could be a listening lesson in math, language arts. I want you to write a SMART objective for a listening lesson. So I'm going to put up the Bloom's taxonomy again for you so you can see it. Let's see, and no, I don't want to do that one. Let's do this one. Yeah, that's a good one. All right, we saw that one yesterday. So give me this one SMART objective for a listening activity. You can write it in the chat. All right, did everyone, can I stop sharing this now? All right, let me read the chats real quick. Let's see. By the end of the lesson, students will be able to listen to a short audio. All right, so Carl, we would separate that. One would be, so we'll say one, listen to a short audio. Two, identify at least identify at least three key details. How are they going to identify? By doing what?
Okay, for example, to identify. For example,
Yeah.
maybe you put for them a short video, okay? They have first to listen to the short video for them to identify at least 3 keywords, depending on the story.
How, remember, SMART is specific, so you gotta be specific,
Yes.
measurable. So
Yeah.
measurable. So
Achievement.
how would you know that how can you measure that they did it? By doing what? What will they do?
Mhm.
You see? You see what I'm saying? So it might look something like this. The first one is okay. Listen to a short audio. Perfect. You can look and see if they're listening. Two, identify at least three key details by listing and on a chart. By listing on a chart. So they will write, or you could say identify at least three details or three details by listing on a provided chart, or by telling their classmates or sharing with the class verbally. The point I'm trying to make is make sure that you're specific. So if you use word like identify, which is a good word, you got to say how they will identify. So like, for instance, I would say students will underline the noun in the sentence. Students will circle the verb in the sentence. That's identify. But now that's measurable because I can measure that they underlined the noun and circled the verb. Okay?
Okay.
Let's see. Carl, is Carl, you the only one responding to it?
Yes.
Students will be expressed. All right, what do you guys think about this one? Students will be able to express themselves. Is that a smart objective? Is that specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and timely? How are they going to express themselves, Joy?
When I'm giving them put a video for them to watch, right? And then I tell them to express what they've listened to
How?
by asking the question, what was the story all about? If they can relate to it.
So you're going to write. So your smart objective will be this: students will be able to answer questions about the video. About students will be able to answer questions related to self-expression about the video. Right? How will they answer questions? So I need to go deeper. Students will be able to write down responses to the videos that they listen to that will that will record their feelings about the video. You guys see what I'm going at? You got to be very specific. Students will tell the class, verbally tell the class about their feelings about the video. Students will create a social media post, a Facebook post about responding to how they feel about the video. Saying, writing, students will be able to express themselves is not measurable enough. You got to how they're going to do it. Are they going to write something? Are they going to say something? Are they going to point to something? Are they going to circle something? Right? How are they going to do it? Evaluate. If they're going to evaluate something, how are they going to evaluate? Are they going to write something in response? They're going to create a written response. Are they going to evaluate it verbally? Are they going to use a rubric? Students will be able to evaluate the painting using the rubric the teacher submitted or presented, okay, or distributed. Okay, students will be able to critique or evaluate the response verbally. Students will be able to evaluate the response. Students will write a paragraph. Students will write a paragraph that evaluates or that analyzes their feelings about the painting using the provided rubric. Be very specific. You have some schools even say I don't necessarily agree with this, but some schools would even say by what percentage. So students will answer questions related to the reading at an accuracy of 80%, meaning they need to get 80% of the questions right. Students will complete a true false quiz at an accuracy of 75%. You don't have to, that's getting really, really like detailed. But you definitely want to make sure that you're smart and that you explain in that objective how they're going to do it. So we make sure that it's specific, it's achievable, and it's measurable. All right. So that was Irene. You wrote relevant. It focuses on listening skills. Is that your objective? Irene, are you with us? I don't think I think Irene didn't understand the activity. Are you with us, Irene? She may have walked away. And in any event, like I said, this course was supposed to be an overview. Use that lesson plan app that I put in the Google Classroom. It's gonna produce smart objectives for you. You tell it exactly what you are trying to do, what the context is, what the topic is, and that doesn't mean you got to tweak it too. You got to make some edits to it, but it'll be a good foundation on how to write a lesson plan, and it'll save you a lot of time. Because you guys are working in an American school, then you guys are using the Common Core standards, or at least using the Common Core standards. One of the things, do they talk about Common Core at the school? Did they talk about it? Joy, you say yes?
No.
No? So what? So you never heard them say anything about Common Core? What?
No.
They should be. Did they say what state they're using as the standards? Because it's an American diploma.
Miss Joy, has she ever said? Because for me, I know the only thing that she talks about is the students, they have to do this, they have to do that. By the end of the lesson, they have to go, come back.
Yeah, but what are they basing? Going back to what we talked about before, it needs to be based on the standards, right?
Standard,
So I would ask her, not this year, but at some point, that question has to be brought up. Because if I was bringing my kid to that school right? As an American, the first question I'm going to ask is, what standards are you using? What state standards are you using? And if you can't answer that question, then I'm turning around and walk right out the door, because you're on the thing on the website, it says American Diploma Program. So how many states are there in America? 50. So somebody needs to be able to say, we use Maryland's Common Core standards. We use California's Common Core standards. Or the response could be, we don't use Common Core. We use Virginia. Like Virginia is one of the states that don't use Common Core. So we use Virginia standards because Virginia doesn't recognize Common Core. Or we use New York's Common Core standards. Or we use, I forgot all the states that don't use Common Core. Or we use Kansas. I think Kansas doesn't use Common Core either. We use Kansas state standards. We don't use Common Core. We use Kansas state standards, right? And all our teachers use those standards to conduct their curriculums. If you never heard that in that school, then that explains why that mission statement is all jacked up the way it is.
Okay,
Right?
I need to ask you something. When you say that, do you mean like the book?
What
When
book are
say
you
the
using?
Common Core?
So remember we talked about Common Core, right? We said Common
Yeah.
Core is standard. All right.
Mm.
So it should be how you guide your curriculum. Should be based on those standards, because you're telling people that you're running an American Diploma Program.
Yes,
Right?
and the book that we use.
What book is it? So okay, what book are you using?
MC Grohl here.
McGraw-Hill?
Yes.
Okay. Now, McGraw-Hill is an American textbook company. So they are, remember I said textbooks uses the standards. So they're using the standards. They're using Common Core, or I don't know what state that textbook's using, but they're using American standards. So what you need to do is you need to look in that McGraw-Hill book, and somewhere in that book, that's going to tell you the standards that they're using and what state they come from. Or the next time, it's in that book somewhere. McGraw-Hill makes great books. Okay.
Yes,
So,
the wonders. The one.
hmm?
Okay. Okay.
So look, it's somewhere in the book. You got it's either in the front or back, but those standards, and they might even be in each unit. In each unit, they might be identifying the standard. All right. But you guys should be outside of that, because you're not relying strictly on the textbook. The textbook is not the curriculum, it's just a resource. So you should be writing lesson plans and unit plans outside of the textbook. You're only using the textbook as a resource, as maybe to gain content, gain ideas, but you should not be teaching solely out of the textbook, right? Because that textbook doesn't know anything about your students in your class, right? So there should be a conversation, or there should always be conversations about the standards. And I'm just telling you, and I'm not saying go back and run and tell this lady she don't know what she's doing, but if she's not talking about the standards, then no, she don't know. Excuse my language. No, I'm not gonna cuss. She don't know what she's doing. Okay, because everything that she does, she should be preaching to y'all. Show me the standard. Where's the standard? You doing this activity? What standard does this align with? That's all you should hear from her mouth. You should be like, this lady and her standards, right? If she's not talking like that, then she doesn't know what she's doing. Okay. So, and look, don't go and challenge her. Don't say nothing to her. Just know that she don't know what she's doing, and now that you know, you can do better, right? So go in that book, and then if you get an opportunity, if she asks anybody wants to do a professional development, or volunteer to do a professional development. Once you learn, and if you need my help, I'll help you. I'll create the slides for you, and I'll show you how to do the slides, and you can go back and do a professional development and show your peers how to write lesson plan based on the standards and have a conversation with them about standards and how the textbook are using standards to correct the curriculum, or how the textbook is basing the curriculum from the standards. All right.
Okay, yeah, I need to cut you 1 minute because yes, I heard that we are going to change the book. So I don't think we are going to use the same book. But we cannot say no to what you're offering. So for me, I was asking maybe if they send us maybe the link of the book, if we can contact you.
Yeah. Listen, you guys, you'll have this Google Classroom. I'm not shutting it down. It'll be always active. You can always ask me questions anytime on the stream, or you're in the WhatsApp group. You can always ask me questions, and unless I'm busy, I will respond back to you in a couple minutes within a day. I normally not more than a day. I will respond back to you. If so, when you get the new book, you can look through it yourself. Those standards will be somewhere in there because McGraw-Hill is a professional company. When I was coming up, I learned from McGraw-Hill books, right? So they're a professional company. They do a great job. I'm sure those standards are listed a lot throughout that textbook. I'm sure of it. What's the name of the book? I'm curious. I don't mean to hold you guys, but now what's the name of that book? What's the name of the textbook you use? Let me see if I can pull it up.
We have Inspire Science.
Inspire Science.
I think it's
Yes.
English.
Yeah, Micro Inspire Science.
Inspire Science. Hold on a second. Let me see if I can pull it up real quick. McGraw-Hill, right?
Yes.
What grade? It don't matter what grade. Oh, they got a PDF right here. All right, I'm gonna tell you right now. I'll tell you right now. Let's pull this PDF and see what's going on. See what the goings on is. All right. I'll pull it out right now and see what's going on. All right, this is grade 5. Let's see. Mm-hmm. Student table of contents. Let's see if they mark in the standards. All right, maybe it's at the back of the book. Let's see something. Oh, they're not giving me the whole book. Daggone it. All right, let me do one thing here. So I'm just ask a question real quick. Let's see. State standards. Use does McGraw-Hill use Common Core to create, to develop, or did
to develop inspired science textbook. Okay. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. I'm gonna show you this. All right. You said see my screen? You guys, are you there? Are you there?
Yes, yes, we can see your screen.
So McGraw-Hill's inspired science textbook and curriculum is primarily developed and aligned with the next generation science standards. All right. Now, rather than Common Core. Now, Common Core doesn't get too deep in science. So America also uses the standards, the next generation, we call it NGSS standards for science. So it's a part of the American standards, but separate than Common Core. So that book that you're using uses the next generation science. So if you're teaching science, now,
Yes, yes.
so the reading textbook, let's use because you use it Inspire for reading too, right? Let's see.
Reading, we use wonders.
All right. Now, see, for reading, it's the Common Core standards. You see that? You see it? They use the Common Core standards to design the book. So everything is aligned with the Common Core standards. You see that right there?
Yes, yes, you can see.
And that's McGraw-Hill. Let's see.
Nah,
And
not
this
this
book,
one.
yeah, no, but it's all the same. All the books are using. Oh, there it is. See, that's the note. All the books should have a note like this in the book. It says, in closing, we know that all of us at McGraw-Hill are looking forward to collaborate with you and begin to integrate the K-12 Common Core standards for English language arts and literacy in schools and districts. So it's telling you right here, first sentence, you have relied on McGraw-Hill education to provide engaging, effective literacy programs that capture the vision of your state standards. See, of your state standards. You see that? The vision of your state standards. You see that?
Yes, yes.
We fully support the nation's goal of producing a Common Core voluntary standards that are aligned with college and career expectations and which are reflective of cross-disciplinary skills such as critical thinking and problem solving. Everything I've been telling you for the last 3 days. Our authors, editors, and educational consultants are carefully, listen to this, carefully studying the draft of the K-12 Common Core standards for English and literacy arts that the National Board of Governors released on March 10th, 2010. Now, this is way back when Common Core was first introduced. So this is old. All right. So all of the books, and this is what I knew, but I wanted to prove to you. Every book that you use, if it's from a legitimate publisher and they use an American books, it's going to be aligned with the Common Core standards. That means you must know the Common Core standards. Now, I'll share that website with you. I showed it to you the first day. I'll share that website with you so you can become familiar with the Common Core standards and you can start aligning your curriculum with the Common Core standards. But your textbooks already know that your textbooks are already aligned with the state standards. They're using the general Common Core standards, okay? They're using the general, so they're not using it from any one particular state, all right? For science, who's teaching science? Carol, you're teaching science?
Yes.
All right.
Grade 2.
Okay, for in America, you're going to use the next generation standards, NGSS.
Okay.
It's called next generation for science. So we don't say Common Core for science. We say next generation state standards. Okay. And you can pull those up I'll show you real quick, and then I know you guys want to get out of here, but I'll show you really quickly. Next generation website, and I try to put these links in the Google Classroom for you, so you have them. But you can look up yourself. Next generation science standards. There you go. So a simple Google search. So yeah, I just did a simple Google search. Next generation science standards. All right. And you can find stuff up there. Common Core Next Generation Standards. Okay. And you should have your standards by grade. See? Next Generation Science Standards. You see that? So if you teach what grade 2?
Yes,
So you
grade 2.
go to grade 2 and you go, it's science. Or then you can do the discipline, but let's just leave it blank and you search. All right. And this is going to be all the grade 2 standards and what you should cover. In grade 2, you should be covering matter and interactions, ecosystems, Earth place in the universe, Earth science, Earth systems. All these you should be covering in grade 2. Engineering design, interpret relationships in the ecosystem. All these are part of the standards, all right, for grade 2. And if I click one, matter and its interactions, and then here are all the individual standards. 2P S11, 2P S12. So you can just literally copy and paste these. So in that lesson planner that I gave you, app, you could take this, copy and paste it, put it where it says standards, and it'll help you form a lesson plan for that standard.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, so ladies, know that if this is brand new to you and you've been teaching in that school year and they're claiming, number one, they're not really an American diploma program because they're not recognized by the United States Department of Education. So they're already scamming people. You understand? In order to be a diploma program, you have to be recognized by the United States Department of Education. But that's neither here nor there because the Saudi Ministry of Education recognizes them, and that's good enough. But they're not recognized by America, right? So know that now that you know better, you can do better, right? So if your coordinator, your academic director says, anybody want to do a professional development? And they say, yeah, I'd love to do a professional development on the next generation science standards, right? So people know, okay, this is where I can pull more resources, right? Because on that website, there are resources that you can use. All right. So ladies, thank you for taking 3 days of your time. Hopefully you learned something of value over the last 3 days. Again, this was just a quick overview. I may do a TESOL course sometime in the beginning of next school year. It's very time consuming. That's the 120-hour course. I will give you a digital certificate in the next couple of days. If you decide to take the 120-hour course, you will get the that's the full certificate. But again, if you have any questions about anything, don't hesitate to WhatsApp me, ask it in the Google Classroom, and use this course as an opportunity to begin to explore. If you get an opportunity to get a master's degree in education or whatever, go for it. I have a program now. Everyone has a bachelor's, right?
Yes.
If I have a program where you can work on your Master's of Education, all right, and I can lead you through that. It's through the Paris University of International Education. So if you're interested in getting your master's degree, it's completely online. Saudi is now accepting online degrees. I don't know if you heard that. And it's a master's degree. It's accredited by the Ministry of Education in France. It's completely asynchronous, meaning you work by yourself. You take the courses, you work by yourself. It's relatively inexpensive. For a master's degree, you're gonna pay about 10,000 reals, but you don't have to pay it all at one time. You can pay it per course. You can pay a little bit at a time. This course will help again give you a lot more knowledge, and now you have now you would have a master's degree. If you're interested in that, again, you don't have to pay all that money up front. If you want to start working on that, I would highly suggest it. It's going to improve your skills. It's going to give you another degree that's recognized worldwide, and it's going to move you towards becoming a better educator. Okay, and it's give you open more opportunities for you. If you don't want that program, find another program. Maybe there's a free program in Kenya or scholarships you can get in Kenya and other places. But continue to develop. This 3-day course was just to open your eyes that there's a lot that you need to learn. You have the course notes. You have a lot of resources. I will continue to put resources, but it's ultimately is up to you to follow up and begin to put more tools in your toolbox. Are there any questions for me at this point? No, you're tired of hearing my voice by now, right? Joy, Carol, Irene.
No.
All right. Make sure you complete your last exit ticket for today to qualify for the certificate. And I will be sending you the certificate by email. Again, if you want to explore the master's degree or the TESOL course or other programs, you can look at my website or you can contact me directly. If you just have any general questions about teaching and learning, don't hesitate to contact me. You have my number, you have the Google Classroom, and you have the WhatsApp group. If you don't have, if there's no other questions, look forward to your certificate in the next couple of days in your email, and hopefully I'll talk to you guys soon. Thank you
Okay,
for your time.
I wanted
Yeah.
to say something on the certificate because some people sometimes they write the names that they are not supposed to write. For example, someone can write Kerry Asaf on my certificate, which is not on my documents. Are we supposed to text you?
No, on the registration form. Remember, you completed
Yeah.
the registration form. What did I write on that registration form? Write the name that you want on the certificate.
Yes.
Did you write the name that you want on the certificate?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the name I'm going to put. Whatever name you put on the registration form.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yes.
Okay, so that's the name I'm going to use. All right. Any other questions, concerns, criticisms? All right. Again, make sure you finish the exit ticket. I hope you guys learned something, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Bye for now.
Thank